Good morning. We are coming to you live today from MCC North Express. My name is Daphne Cook. Thank you for joining us for the first part of our three-part series, Thriving During Uncertainty. So right now, employees are returning to work and employers are grappling with how to best support employees' psychological and mental well-being. Employees are facing a host of new challenges before that most have not faced in their lifetime. So today we are joined by members of an organization who's received a lot of recognition for getting it right. We have members from AOI, and if you would just start with your name and your title, and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm CJ Franco, and I'm the Director of Human Resources at AOI.
My name is Chris Hill, and I'm President at AOI.
And I am Becky Costello. I am the Vice President of Furniture Sales for AOI.
So for those who may not know, what does AOI do?
We are a commercial general contractor. We are a Herman Miller furniture dealer, and we also have a pre-manufactured construction product that we sell as well. So we're very diverse. We have about a little over 100 employees. Construction has been considered or deemed an essential industry, so we've had construction crews that have been working the whole time. We have furniture installers, we have designers, project managers, our sales team, a lot of different positions and a lot of different types of work all within one business. So very, very diverse organization for just having over 100 employees.
So this is a situation that many of us in our lifetimes have never been in before. And so it feels a lot of times reactive, but it seems like you've taken more of a proactive stance. And so could you talk us through where you started when this all kind of started, maybe back in March, and we were trying to figure things out, and we're still trying to figure things out now, but how does that differ from where you are now?
Well, I think like a lot of companies, maybe our country was, when this first happened in March, end of March, beginning of April, we were all very afraid. We were in a crisis. So it looked like the economy might shut down. It looked like businesses were being shut down. We didn't know if everybody was going to get sick. There was just a lot of fear. We were seeing what was happening with other communities and hospitals, and so very, very fearful time. And then for AOI in particular, we do a lot of business with large commercial organizations that are very dense, and those organizations started to shut down their campuses. So for our workforce, it was a little unsettling because we were wondering, are we going to have work? And so initially, the crisis that we were dealing with primarily is that of livelihood. Will our people have jobs? Are we going to be laying people off? Is there going to be work for us to do? Are our customers going to have things for us to do? What's going to happen? And so then our employees are thinking, what's going to happen to my family? It didn't look like there were going to be a lot of new opportunities out there if things didn't go the right way. And so we were really in a big crisis. And we've talked a little bit about that old Maslow's Hierarchy of needs. I mean, we really were dealing with a sense of safety in terms of economic safety, which impacts livelihood. It impacts whether or not you can put food on the table and whether or not your family will have what they need.
So during this time, there's this sense of a lack of control, a sense of feeling exposed. So how do you help employees feel okay in that environment?
I think the biggest thing that we did is, like Chris indicated, the Maslows Hierarchy, making sure that people understood and that we're doing all that we can and letting them know where we were at within each stage. So initially, we were communicating, this is what we know now, because it was changing every day, especially there in the beginning, which now feels like a year ago.
I know it does.
But we were talking about that the other day. It's like, it feels like a year ago, but it was really only a few months ago. But we were really, Chris did a great job of sending out some weekly communications initially. This is what we know about COVID. This is how it's impacting our organization. this is how it's impacting our employees from a health related impact. And this is what we're doing as solutions based on what we know now. And we let them know this might change. So as we were doing those things, I think that helped us, and it helped create some safety, and it's going to be okay. And we're going to move forward. We're going to keep, doing the things that we need to do. And then what can you do as employees? So giving them some direction too of what they needed to focus on, I think helped also.
And to add on to that, I do think, initially and early on, we talked about what sources we were getting our information from. So we chose to follow the Chamber's We Rise document, CDC guidelines. So we were quoting and following people who know a little bit more than us about economics and health and wellness, and making sure that our employees knew this is where we're getting our stats from, or this is where we're getting our information from. So we're not just making this stuff up, it's coming from a credible source.
I think we did some other thing. We had the benefit of a leadership team that was already intact, and we already had synergy. We already were working together to solve various business issues. And so we were able to lean on each other and on that group to walk through issues and figure out how to respond. So it was a very collaborative approach, which included leaders from our different business units, HR, marketing, accounting, a good cross-section of individuals. So we were trying to solve these things together. We also are an organization that places a lot of value on our people. We're a service organization, and so our people are our business, and the services and things that they do for our customers. So even when those job sites were being shut down and we didn't have work for some of our people for a while, we decided to continue to pay them at times, or to find things that they could. We built a couple Habitat for Humanity houses. We made hand sanitizer for some hospitals. We had a furniture crew who volunteered to go to all of our employees' homes and do any yard work that they needed done. So we just said yes to that. So there was probably about 6 to 8 weeks where we were not at full capacity, and we had things done at our homes. We just did it. We figured out as much as we could to maintain as full employment as we could, so that people knew that we were committed to them. We don't know where this is going. We have faith, we have hope, we believe in our organization, we believe that we're going to get through this, and to demonstrate that we're going to do what we can to keep everybody working.
Did you have employees who expressed concern or just fear just about the general atmosphere? Because a lot of times it's easy to keep your work separate from your home, and now everything's commingling.
I think initially, there was a lot of diversity in how people responded to it. I mean, some people, individuals that lived alone, they were kind of excited about it initially, but then, those feelings of loneliness set in. And so they were expressing some of those concerns, and not, because we're a very collaborative, energetic type office and environment, and interfacing with each other. Some people were really concerned about the health of their family members. They may have had family members at risk, and so our employees that were working in the field that had that potential of more exposure, they were concerned about exposing their children or their spouse, or maybe they had an elderly family member that lived with them. So those were all things that people were kind of at different points throughout the whole thing. And we've seen that even now as we have gotten further down the road, people wane between different, where they're at, and, feelings as they learn additional education, or as they hear about people they know that maybe have had it and their experience, that can change, how they feel about it. So we've been seeing that change, and you have to be flexible and be prepared to address that with those individuals, somewhat one-on-one.
Well, you mentioned that just the part of your culture is this collaborative nature. It's very energetic. So how do you maintain that when so your team is back together, right, 100%? But where you started, maybe you had some at home, you had some in the field, as you mentioned, Chris. So how do you maintain your culture and maintain that feeling of psychological well-being?
There was a moment, our leadership team, I remember this meeting, we were talking about how is everybody doing, and recognized early on that we were starting, I've heard that 30% of the population right now is dealing with some sort of low-grade depression, and the fear and the uncertainty can really weigh on people. And then you've got family situations and kids not in school, and all this stress on families, and that affects morale, and that affects engagement and productivity and all of those things. But we really started to get concerned about how people were feeling, and this sense of sadness or grief, all the things we've lost, the sports, the concerts, we identified it as grief. We were grieving, our group was grieving. And so we have this thing that we do every year. It's called AOI Gives, and it's an employee-driven committee, and we charge them with, go find some good that we can do in the community. Pick an organization that we can volunteer with. We'll raise some money, and the idea is that when we come together to do something outside of work and we're making a difference, it does something for us. And there's a lot of different things that we do with that program, but we didn't intend to do that this year because of everything else going on. It just seemed like something that was going to be put on hold. But we realized that this is probably the year that we need that more than any other year. So we put the committee together and we said, look, we don't know how you're going to do this with all the physical distancing and all the extra challenges of COVID, but we need you to do this more than any other year. Please find a way to bring us together while still maintaining all of the COVID protocols that are in place. And so that was one thing that we did. We've got our AOI Gives team rose to the challenge, and they picked an organization, and they've figured out some things that we can do. So we did that. I think the other thing is the health and safety protocols that we've put in place allows more freedom than if you're not doing those things. So if people feel safe, they might be more inclined to attend the baby shower that was held for somebody, she's having a baby, and so we had a retirement and a baby shower and some other things. We're like, we can't not do these things. This is who we are. We celebrate, there's almost a family feel in our organization. We celebrate big milestones. We share those things with each other. We're friends with one another. And we didn't want to have those opportunities pass us by. We just wanted to figure out how do we do it differently in a way that keeps us safe. And then I think also just acknowledging we've got to find connectedness. We've got to find ways. For a while we were talking about safety, productivity, engagement, or connection in that order. But I almost think that the connection has to come first before you can really get that productivity, because it's that connection that makes people feel engaged. So we're being honest about it, being okay putting it out on the table as a challenge, and then working together to figure out how to solve those things.
Well, you mentioned safety protocols, so there had to be this shift from how you would normally do business to how it's being done now. And I imagine that would have to evolve over time. So what were some of those early protocols that you took?
Well, on our job sites, again, our construction is essential. So our job sites that were still active, those didn't shut down, and construction has continued to be pretty steady in our community. So the first thing that we had to do is figure out how to keep our job sites safe. And I talked to a couple of our superintendents. What do you want to do here? Because we can figure out how to keep everybody safe and keep working. And they're like, that's what we want to do. We want to keep working. We want to be on the job sites. What do we do? And so we appointed one of our superintendents who's project had been shut down. He was working in a interior renovation capacity, so that job site shut down, and that organization moved everybody out of the building. So I didn't have an assignment for him, and I asked him if he would be our COVID safety coordinator, and basically said, I need you to figure out how to keep our job site safe. Here's all the stuff. Like, we just sent him all, here's all the stuff. While we're doing these other things, this is what I need you to do. And we could not have picked a better person to do this. It created an opportunity for this individual to rise to the occasion and demonstrate leadership skills that we didn't even know. We knew he was a great guy and we knew he did a great job, but we had no idea that he possessed these additional leadership skills. He had the hardest job in the company, to go out to every single job site and talk superintendents and subcontractors and everybody in that on that job site into wearing masks and social distancing and cleaning tools and signing in these health forms that we've got, in some cases taking temperatures, things that are so outside of what we would normally be doing on a job site. And so appointing that person and not trying to have all the answers and not trying to have everybody doing everything, but finding individuals that can help and cutting them loose and supporting them and letting them go at it. So he did a remarkable job. And we have other people that we charged with different aspects of, help us figure out how to keep everybody safe, put things in place.
I think that's been part of our culture. Normally is safety has always been a part of construction. When you're on a job site, things are continually changing and moving. So I think we had that mindset of safety on our job sites to begin with. And our superintendents, because they wanted to continue working, handled it in the same way with any type of job site challenge, is what is the solution? What keeps us all safe and we can still get our job done? And so, like Chris said, we accredit that to, our staff and our employees. They're used to problem solving on the job site. We had a leader that had great communication skills, that he could talk about the challenges. He was aware of the challenges on the job site, and he could respond to those, and they could have a logical conversation. What works, what doesn't. These are the rules. I sent Chad this big long email. Here's the links to everything you have to read. Good luck. But he looked at everything, and it was good. It was really good for him to have those conversations and work with.
He had to go find masks. Yeah. There were no masks. There was no hand sanitizer, and there were no sanitizing wipes at the very beginning. So he had to go out and find all this stuff and bring it back. It really was a remarkable effort. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is, we ended up making our own hand sanitizer.
Yeah. In the beginning.
Well, it sounds like, Chris, earlier you had mentioned Maslow's hierarchy, and one of the basic things would be, am I going to have a job? And it sounds like there was this sense of, we're in this together, and that was this underlying message, we're in this together, and we're going to walk through this. And so finding places for people during the interim, because you have all these different activities going on within your organization. And as you said, the construction didn't shut down, but maybe other areas did, or look different because you're not in the office.
I think one of my favorite moments was, and we're in a different place on that Maslow's hierarchy. We were talking about that this morning, just how true that thing that you learn in Psychology 101, just how true that theory is. But we had the moment when one of our furniture installers called and said, look, we're slow. Can we go out to all of, and we had people working from home and working through, that was during the time when we were homeschooling kids. And so a lot of stress, and he said, can we go out and do yard work for all of the employees? Free. Like, nobody was charging. And we were gonna pay them just their hourly wage, but they wanted to go out and do this for their coworkers. And the response that we had People were so appreciative. Here come the crews, and they cleaned up the yards, and they put down mulch, and it was one less thing that people had to worry about, and it kept people busy. But it also created an opportunity for connection, because people got to meet other employees that they maybe didn't have an opportunity to work with on a day-to-day basis. And I think it was empowering and energizing, and it was energizing that someone would think of that, and it was energizing to be able to say yes. And I think it was just something that just made us all feel really good at a time when we really needed to be able to feel good. We needed something positive like that to happen. So I think in times of crisis, when people are saying, can we, it's important to say yes, because it creates momentum and it creates enthusiasm, and it's something productive to do that can contribute to that culture that we have.
You know, a lot of times when you have a job, you have a job description, and so here's these things that you're expected to fulfill. But in this environment, it sounds like, or I just want to ask you, was there an opportunity to see skills in employees that you never saw before because they weren't called to use that in their position?
Definitely.
Well, yeah, the person that called and asked that is now the chairperson of our AOI Gives committee. I mean, he made such a great impression and handled it so well. And AOI Gives is typically a group of people that they've demonstrated some sort of leadership, strength or capacity throughout the year. And so he was just a natural to put in that position. And now he gets to lead a group made up of different employees from throughout the company that he wouldn't normally work with. So you got to have a long range vision and a long-term game, and know that everything that you do today is going to affect the organization long-term, whether it's an incredible amount of transparency that we decided to provide. We were going to tell people as much as we could. We were going to share as much information as we could, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it, and be honest with people, but also share a certain amount of hope, because we do believe in our company, and we knew we'd get through this. Just at times it was a little interesting.
Times maybe a little nerve-wracking. And I just do want to mention as well that questions can be asked at any time. We've saved time for questions at the end, so feel free to throw a question in the chat at any time. You talked a little bit about what it looked like on the job sites, but how about in the office? Especially as people were coming back, it had to look different than when they had left.
It sure does. We are fortunate that we have designers on staff, and they are armed with software and technology that helps them plan our space. We happen to have a lot of space as well in our showroom, so we established, and again, going back to those early resources that I mentioned, the We Rise program and the CDC guidelines talking about distances and safe distances. We established some maps for our showroom so that when people came back, they understood, don't walk here. If you would normally walk through this path is too close to your coworkers, so don't take this path, take another path. So we have floor plans set up throughout our space that show approved walking paths, or paths that would be a better choice. We also have hand sanitizer everywhere throughout our showroom, as well as surface spray with paper towels. You'll see them everywhere throughout our space. Our showrooms have been outfitted with a number of occupancy. So say a conference room that used to seat 7 people may now only fit 3 people. And we've made placemats that show, if you've got, Chris is sitting here, maybe don't sit right next to her, but you could sit across the table from her. So there's a lot of visual cues that we've given people to help them as they come back to the office. We do still have some people who are choosing to work from home too. So being flexible, I think, is important. We have found some people are more productive working from home. We have found some other people not so much. So giving them that choice of return to work, but then also communicate with each other if you need to collaborate, talk through that. And if you both need to be in the office to work together, schedule it. But yeah, lots of visual cues and maps and communication.
And I think we have some images of that as well. So it sounds like kind of like just like how things normally are, just a mixed bag. I would imagine as there's this shift to go work at home, you have some who were very resistant, you have some who were very excited, and then as you come back, I think people adjust, like, oh, I love this now. And so it's all over the place. So how do you manage that?
I think each department and each job, has different aspects that can be done, at home. Some jobs, like our front desk receptionist, she clearly, could not do her job as well from home. So we needed to keep her, and she wanted to stay, and was helpful in creating that transition for people, because technology, it really opened up the opportunity for us to explore more technology. And I've heard that from some of my HR peers that, they had to do some education around technology and how it works. And we had to do that too. It's like, how do you use Microsoft Teams? Oh, and while we're online, we're discovering, oh, click that button there. Look down on the right, So some of those things we learned as we went, and it created an environment where it was okay to not understand that. Whereas sometimes you get into an environment where you're like, oh, everybody knows all this technology. I'll look stupid if I ask that question. Whereas, as we were all going through this, it opened up that opportunity to say, I don't know how to do this, and we could help each other. And so it was really good to see that. And, like Chris said, the transparencies of the good, the bad, the ugly is like, being humble and being able to say, I don't know how to do this. But then, also asking for help, like, hey, our receptionist, can you scan that document that just came in to me? Or I'm going to stop in and communicating to each other. I'm going to be in the office. Are we going to have others in there? What is that timing? So as I've talked to other HR peers, they've also indicated there's been times where they had to keep certain staff within their office environment to maintain those day-to-day operations and support those that were working from home. And it was interesting. Some people who thought they would really enjoy working from home discovered, I really do enjoy. I was talking to someone who said they knew somebody who was an introvert, and she was like, I can't wait to work from home. It's so great. But now that she's worked from home for a period of time, she's like, I can't wait to get back to the office. So they were talking about that. So it's been interesting as the community, within marketing and within, design and HR, and I think it's created a way to have conversations with each other, just like we're doing today. What can we share with each other? How can we all be successful and get through this in a way that benefits us all? So I think that's been part of the discovery of this whole thing too.
Well, Chris, you had mentioned that having these protocols in place actually gives you more freedom and flexibility. So that sounds like that really works well from a leadership perspective. But I'm wondering, like, when employees were first coming back, how that was received, and then now your employees have been back for a while, and how is it going now?
I think the language that we use is important. We had an individual who suggested early on that we use these, it's called a level system, to define what we were doing, and I think she got it from Huddle or somebody else. This has been the fun, if there's fun in the dysfunction of COVID, it's the sharing of information that so many companies have done to kind of figure out how to get through this and how to thrive and adapt. But this level system was, level 1 is come in at will, basically. Level 2 is we don't want you here. And then level 3 is you cannot come in no matter what. We never hit level 3. We got to level 2. So what we told people is we don't want you here. There were some people whose jobs, they weren't really able to do their job well without, our office is a showroom. There's also a lot of materials that our designers use There's equipment that you can't necessarily, and this is for the office folks, there's equipment that wouldn't be feasible to have at home. So they would come in periodically. When they came in, they needed to wear the mask, they needed to fill out the survey. You know, you can come in if you absolutely have to, but we don't want you here, but you can. Just make sure you follow those protocols. And I think that created a sense of, they would come in, but they would just be there for a certain amount of time. And so we never had a density concern. And then we moved to level 1. As the community opened up a little bit more, we moved to level 1, which is where we're at now. Come in at will. You can come in whenever you want, just follow these protocols. The schools have put us in a situation where we know we have to maintain flexibility for some time until that stabilizes. So yes, we have some people that are more productive at home, but we have a lot of people that want to be back in the office full time and would be if schools were in a little bit different situation right now. So I think it's the language. The other thing that we did, because I think some people were afraid, like, is it safe? Just kind of getting over the hump. And CJ did, we put together a reentry task force. Again, pulling people in from different parts of the organization. They had a mission, and the mission is, you're going to figure out what we're doing from a space planning standpoint. You're going to figure out what we're doing from a communication and signage standpoint. You're going to represent this group. You're going to represent this group. This is what we're moving to. Let's figure out how to do that well. So that was it wasn't if, should we, it was, this is what we're going to do. Tell us what we need to do to make sure that goes well. And CJ led that group, and they did onboarding and protocols, and almost like you would do a brand new employee, like orientation that's how they approached it. As if it was your first day of work. Here's all the things that you need to know about coming back into the office. And I think at first there was some nervousness around that, right? But as people realized, oh, it is safe. Oh, everybody is wearing their mask. Oh, it's not contentious, so to speak. It is flowing. It does look like AOI. Like all of our signage, there's pictures I think I sent in of, it fits within our decor, so it's not ominous. It's friendly, it's encouraging, it's, here's the things that we're doing to keep each other safe. I don't know, CJ, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, and then we added a little bit of fun perspective to it. We had welcome back bags. I mean, it was nothing fancy. We didn't spend a whole lot of money on it. It was just a plastic bag you get at the grocery store, Ziploc bag with, fun little items, chocolate, because you gotta have chocolate to survive.
Absolutely.
Some chips, little snacks in there. But it also gave, here's a map of where you can walk. So they had the individual one, didn't have to move around. They could see to plan as they got up. There were some fun little posters in there about mask. Having a little bit of fun with that, about what is the right way to wear it, what's not. And then when we brought them back, like she said, just like a new hire, doing that re-onboarding, and it was smaller groups, so we got to have more of an individual type situation where we could have them ask questions. And we usually brought similar positions together, so they had similar concerns and could ask those questions on that call. And we did all those via our Teams, Microsoft Teams process, and could communicate to them and show them the posters, show them the information on the CDC. So they knew that it was valid information, like Becky had said, from our resources, and it was consistent. But then they also knew everybody was hearing the same information as we went through. And before we did that re-onboarding, I did a little snippet of these were the rules. It was a little video thing that was kind of fun and cartoonish that they could watch, and I think it was 3 or 4 minutes before they even, came back, and we sent that the week before introducing, hey, you're in the next group. So then they could mentally think about some of the questions. These are going to be the rules. What does that mean? And so I think that created some comfort too, because you were introducing it in small bites that they could listen to and adapt and begin to process what that's going to look like. Because people need time. Change is hard,
right,
to do.
Right, absolutely. There were a lot of big swings.
Yes.
From kids at home, working at home, and then going back. So just a lot of big swings. So taking it in small bites like you suggested, and finding fun. So when all of this started back in March, early April, it was crisis and it was reactive, but it sounds like you've found a good pace. And so my question is, when did you know that you were shifting out of that crisis mode? I mean, we're still reacting. We're still reacting, or, adjusting, evolving.
As a parent, for me, it was kind of when school was officially out and summer hit. It felt a little different for me personally because I wasn't having to teach my kids as I was working at home. But I think business-wise, I don't know, we've had a mixed bag of some people really like working from home now. And the people who we initially thought liked working from home really want to come back to the office. So I think we're finding some people might have a new norm that we didn't think would be the new norm. So people have found their own groove, and I think we've given them the freedom and with some guidance to say, make good choices. If you need to come here, you can come here. If you work better at home, work from home. So I'm not for sure.
I think there were, in addition to just kind of lowering the heightened sense of alert that we were all like I'm not a great homeschooler, so and I have a 14-year-old who will tell you, he's not either. But I think that shift, honestly, from a business standpoint, there were two. One was PPP funding that came through. That program, if our government has done anything really right during this whole thing, it's getting that passed, because that provided a tremendous amount of relief to organizations. And I think it sent a message to the business community that, look, you might have a rough patch here, we're gonna help you out, it's gonna last this long, and then we should be okay. I think there was just a sense that, and I think it was a brilliant bipartisan strategy that 75% of Nebraska's payroll was covered by PPP. So I think that took some pressure off, just in case we were looking at an adverse economic situation as a business. The other switch was so I mentioned we had campuses, clients that shut down their campuses. AOI is very good at working in an occupied environment, working in a sensitive environment. We're very safety conscious, very, very aware of our surroundings, and work really hard not to create an impact in those facilities. The last organization that we thought would reopen became the first, and it was a healthcare organization with vulnerable, kind of a vulnerable care facility. They were the first one that let us back on their campus because of our protocols and all of the things that we had put in place. They felt like we were a safe company to bring in. And when that got going, we thought, well, if they opened, the rest of these are going to follow as soon as they're able. And so I think those were two milestones. The PPP funding was like, whew, okay, we don't have to worry about a lot of stuff for a while. And the second thing was the campuses beginning to reopen and are getting all of our people back to real work. We built houses and we made sanitizer. That's not what we had. A safety coordinator, and he even said, he goes, I'm gonna do this, but I just want you to know what, because I said, do you want to be future safety director? And he's like, no, I like what I was doing. I said, okay, that's fine. And that campus opened back up too. So getting everybody back to, and that's that Maslows, as we get into regular work and we get busier and busier and more campuses and companies open up, that is creating a different sense of safety, normalcy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We have a couple of questions that we're going to get to. That we've been asked, and I just want to mention, if you have any questions at any time, go ahead and throw them in the chat. We've already received some, but I wanted to ask you about infusing fun. So right now, we do have some organizations that are still 100% remote, and I think depends on a variety of things. We have some that are completely back, like yours are. But how do you infuse fun? I've heard fun is dead, in this environment, but we know that's not true. So how do you infuse fun in this environment?
as I've talked to some of my HR colleagues, I think more companies are looking for ways to do that. And employees are figuring out, hey, we can do this. Like Chris said, looking for those opportunities. I mean, we had an employee that had been with us for 20 years, to let that pass by just was not part of our culture, and it wasn't right. So we had to find a way, to celebrate that. And, we talked about it, what can we do? And we asked different people that he worked with directly, and how can we celebrate this that makes everybody feel safe? And we were able to do some things that, I think he was more of an introverted, shy type of person. So it, just like before, we were able to celebrate in a way that was safe and that represented the individual that we were wanting to recognize. In the initial, we started doing some happy hours on, for our office group, on the calls, using Teams, and people were a little, zoomed out, or as you've heard, but we got creative with that too, and people, found ways to do games on the Teams thing. And I've heard of other companies that are doing different happy hours and playing games and doing things that are fun in a way that they can do that in a physically distanced opportunity. So they can also do, some outdoor things when the weather was nice. So we saw a little more of that. And as we move, into the fall, what are those things? And so as human beings, we're creative and we're looking for those things. And so I don't have all the answers. I'm not always fun. My children will attest to that. But, others do. And you start to get that energy as you talk to each other. Like, oh, we did this. Oh, that's a great idea. I could adapt that in our culture. So it's just having those conversations and making sure, how can we do this in a safe way? What are some fun things? And the other thing we've discovered, in the Omaha community, there's so many different, we were down here the last time and we were walking around, and just all the different things within the community that surround this location, at Metro Community College, we were able to see, oh, we could do this down here, and that would be an opportunity. So it gets us the opportunity to see different parts of the city, and to have some different ways to have fun with our employees. So I think there's a lot of things that you can do as an organization and think outside the box.
Well, we do have some other courses coming up, and we'll definitely have to have you guys come back, because we need to know what we're going to do for winter. Yeah. Winter's coming. We're going to all winter's coming. We're going to all be inside, so we're definitely going to need some tips for that. So here's a question that we received. For each of you, what were your specific position safety goals and tasks for your staff? Goals and tasks for your staff for safety.
I think the biggest thing was, making sure, we had a plan initially and communicating that. And Chris put the goal out there for us to not have anybody get sick, on our job sites. And so we've met that, and, so that is good. And, putting that out there and talking about it and talking about how we do this, like we said before, and finding those solutions, I think, as overall group, that we've been unified around that.
I think in times of high stress, it's really important to have a plan and to put that plan out there. Our plan was modifications to the space. Can everybody be in whatever space it is? There were different people that were charged with evaluate our space, figure out what we need to do to keep everybody 6 feet, and if we're not 6 feet, what's the issue and how do we solve it? So we did a little bit of reconfiguration, and we've moved some people to some different areas. We put some panels up and we shifted some workstations. So someone was charged with that. writing a one-page document that included all of the protocols that needed to be followed in our office that people could put up on their tack boards to have them in front of them at all times as a reference. Find hand sanitizer that is in a nice container so that it fits within our showroom. Somebody was charged with that. Figure out what the health form needs to look like. Every single thing that we had to do, someone was charged with that. And so having a plan and being able to execute, I think that having the guy, I need you to keep our job site safe, here's what that needs to look like. Just being very clear on, here's what we need to do. CJ, I need everybody back in 30 days. I need 25%, 50%, 75%, 100% reentry in 30 days. What does that look like? And so being able to put that out there so people have a vision of what they need to focus on and execute.
Managing a staff of salespeople, they are used to being in person. They're used to calling on clients and going into their space at will. That stopped immediately in March and April. So challenging them to find new ways to sell was my directive, which included create a soapbox video, send that to your client. Mm-hmm. What is your sales message? Do you have let's write your sales message. Let's craft a great message about a great product. Really spending time investing in how they sell in a different way. So technology kind of really came into play for my team. Holding happy hours with clients, not in person, but over Teams. That's a little different, right? Make your own margarita. and then I'm going to tell you about a few things on a Teams meeting. So just challenging them to think about selling in a new way.
So it sounds like, in this environment, this environment, as we've discussed, is constantly evolving, but you took charge of the things that you could take charge of, is what it sounds like. We have another question. Why did you feel comfortable referencing the sources you did for your safety guidelines?
So the one in particular, the We Rise program, I can speak to that one. We Rise was put together, it was a collaboration between business leaders in our community, health leaders, and the Chamber of Commerce, and as well as community leaders like our government leaders. So it was a collaborative initiative, and it was focused on economic recovery. So the message was, or I guess the mission of this program is, if we want our economy to recover, if we want everybody to get back to work, here's what we need to do. First, we need to keep everybody safe, and here's how you do that. So it was laid out really, really well. It was comprehensive. It was something that anybody could follow. It provided data and sources and visuals and all kinds of resources that made it feel like, okay, I can trust these people. These are individuals that run some of the largest organizations in our community. These are people that I felt like we could trust. And so that was one of the first things that we kind of lopped onto, is just the effort that was put into it and the people that were involved. It wasn't coming from one single source. It was coming from, again, a very collaborative initiative. And then CDC and DHHS, that was the recommendation that came out early, follow these guidelines. And in the absence of any other information, that was the only source really that was credible. And we found that the things that they've recommended to us have kept us safe. We've been able to easily implement them. Even when we've had some close calls when it comes to exposures, people being potentially exposed outside of our company, not inside. And so their guidance, CJ monitors each one of those cases and does contact tracing and works closely with DHHS, and has found them very responsive and helpful and credible.
So I think those organizations also have been a resource for other situations, when the Ebola breakout occurred, outside of the United States, and we saw the CDC was referenced for the things, because I think here in the Midwest, we were able to see it as it came in, it hit our coast and it kind of moved. I remember watching and seeing, okay, it's in the US now, it's moving closer. Oh no, we have our first case in Omaha. So, and then knowing that they were referencing the CDC, UNMC, who handled some of the Ebola situations successfully. And we are so fortunate here in Omaha, Nebraska to have those resources and to know, and everybody kept referencing those. So they were kind of the source of expertise because they had knowledge, in other type of, health situations that was valid and they knew what to do. So I think that, gave everybody comfort in knowing that they've been successful and they are the resource to go to.
Now, you may have touched on this next question previously. You mentioned kind of delegating different safety-related issues to different staff. How did you break up those responsibilities or tasks?
Gut feel.
Well, it was based on skill set too.
Well, that's it. It's based on who would be good at this. As leaders and managers, hopefully you've got a good idea of what your people are good at and how you can utilize those skills in different scenarios. And so as those initiatives became apparent, it was, who would execute this or who is in that role to execute this. So I think it's just knowing your people and what their skill, really understanding what their strengths are and what they're good at and being able to leverage that.
Yeah, and I think it truly has been a collaborative effort though. We have designers who can draw floor plans, but then we had them working with our marketing group to make sure that visually everything that we were putting together made sense and it was easy to decipher just, walking through a showroom. So, but then also with CJ to make sure that what we're telling people is accurate and safe. So it truly has been a collaborative effort across all business units, and everybody's been willing and wants to help.
We're big fans of Gallup, and Strength Finders and things like that. And I think knowing, it's nice to see skills in people. You're not quite sure. It's like, oh, that's gonna do great things someday. So really knowing and being able to hone in on and look for people's strengths. What is each individual really good at, and just kind of filing that away. Not so that when something like COVID hits, but just knowing at some point, oh, I can do something with that. That's something our organization could really utilize at some point. So it's having that history with employees, and then when the opportunity arises, to be able to say, here you go, I have a great job for you. It's cool. It's cool to see, and I've been so impressed with the AOI team. And sometimes I walk through our space and I see all the things that everybody has done to make it a safe, engaging, fun, palatable, attractive, unassuming, unominous environment, and I'm so impressed. I just look around and think, God, we pulled together, and this is what we did, and I think it's beautiful, and I think it's so well done, and I'm so proud of. I want people to come see it because it's so. I just think our team has really knocked it out of the park.
I think the other thing is we've created an environment where we're stepping up. People were asking, like Chris has indicated earlier, people are asking, can we do this? We have a culture and an environment where people feel free to ask those questions and to find solutions and to make suggestions. So if you create that culture, I think that helps, with that collaboration, and it helps bring everybody together. And those ideas that the three of us would never think of, people bring to us, and it's like, oh yeah, that would work. And being able to say yes, like Chris said earlier.
We also told ourselves early on, we're gonna screw something up, right? It's like, we're not gonna get this 100% right. We're gonna have to adjust. We're not gonna be perfect. if we didn't we have a percentage, like we wanted at some point we said if we can execute this, if we can get a grade of B plus or an 85%, because no one had ever done this before. And so we just prepared ourselves ahead of time for it does not have to be perfect. We might have to change something. Something might not work as well, or we might get negative feedback on something in particular. That's okay. We've never done this before. We're going to go for it anyways and give ourselves and everybody a little bit of grace when it comes to execution. And I think that took some pressure off, and it gave us all and gave people the freedom to just try stuff.
How have you prepared your organization for future disruptions, potential future disruptions, and what advice do you have for other organizations?
We're trying to eliminate all future disruptions.
Technology. I would say for us, technology and just having Teams. We happen to use Microsoft Teams. That's our platform. Making sure people understand how to use it and knowing that we can deploy it at home now. Because prior to this, we didn't. Half of us knew how to use, not even half, I would say maybe a quarter of us knew how to use Teams. The 3/4 had no clue that it was even on their machine. So communicating what your technology plays a big role in this. Understanding what platforms you have available to you. If you already have them, make sure you educate people on what they are. And then exploring other platforms like Soapbox. I think Soapbox is a great, really simple, easy way to communicate ideas internally and externally. Try it? Just give yourselves time to play around with it, test it out, and see if it works for you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely the investment in technology. We had luckily upgraded our server just a few months before this happened, and our IT guy is like, oh my gosh, if we wouldn't have done that, thank you so much for pulling the trigger on that, the investment in technology. But if there were a real disruption that we're trying to prepare for, it's schools. We are closely monitoring what all the school systems are doing and how that's affecting our families. Having our people engaged is what will create organizational stability and allow us to accomplish our goals. So helping our employees know what resources are out there or how they can navigate. This is outside of what I think some companies would think is important to do, but all of our people are important. Everything that we have them doing is essential to our success. So if we can help them navigate this to some extent and get through this period of time, we're looking at what if they all shut down again. That's the disruption that has potential, and we are actively looking at what would that look like, and how could we respond as an organization.
And I think overall, every organization has challenges that they're facing, and being innovative and looking for those opportunities. I think even before COVID, every organization had challenges. And how did we resolve those? These are worldwide and bigger now. So I think there's more of an impact, but I think we also are still able to find those solutions and go forward. And I read an article where the CEO of Toyota talked about, every year that he has been in his role, he has had a crisis every year. And so when you think about that, you're like, well, every organization has some sort of challenge each year. That's why we set goals. That's why we, look at innovation. That's why we're always looking to grow. And just having that mindset, I think that's what's behind every successful business.
Well, CJ, Chris, and Becky, I just really want to thank you for being here today and providing this very topical, relevant information that we can start using right after we're done. Today's topic really focused on the emotional well-being of employees. What's your last bit of advice or final thought from each of you regarding that subject?
I want to finish where we kind of started with the Maslow's Hierarchy. We have some of our people do not want to talk about COVID and masks anymore. They're doing all of that. What they want is to get back to business and to be focused on the things that we were primarily focused on before all of this hit. So we have an effort in place right now. What are our goals outside? We're all healthy, we're safe, everything's fine now. What are our goals? What are our short and long-term goals, and how do we get back to making that our top priority?
My word through this whole, it feels like it's been 2 years, but my word through the past 6 to 8 months has been grace, giving each other grace and having understanding that nobody has done this before, and everyone's still figuring it out, and you're going to probably make mistakes. So having that grace to either forgive or understand and move on, I think is a big piece of it.
I think the other thing we have found is there isn't just one solution that works. Every organization, every individual is a little bit different. Their situation is a little bit different. So you do have to be flexible in looking at and understanding each employee's individual circumstances, and help them have a conversation, either as managers or as HR professionals, is what is the best solution. Having that conversation with the employee and finding a solution that best works for them. We've had those situations along the way, and I think that has been helpful for the individuals and help with our success, is just looking at those individual opportunities to help them continue to be successful.
Thank you so much for that information. I'd like to let everyone know that this will be up on our MCC Continuing Education page, as well as our YouTube Continuing Education page, so you will have access to this information. Additionally, coming up on the 30th of this month, we talk about designing a physical space in the new normal, followed by, on October 7th, Reentry communication. Thank you so much for joining us today at MCC North Express, and we will see you again soon.